My name is Amy Schoenberger. I'm a nurse at SSM St. Joseph Hospital West in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. I'm honored to be here today to share with you a very special experience of mine. On August 28th, 2014, I had the privilege of being an instrument in God's phenomenal plan. I really was just a mom that day on her way to her son's soccer game. Although, let's be honest, your nursing hat never really does come off, ever. The skies looked ominous on the drive ahead. We almost didn't go. But there was something bigger than me at work that day. About 1 mile from our destination, we drove into rain and record-breaking lightning. The traffic began to slow, coming to a bumper-to-bumper progression. My 10-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter were in the car with me. I actually said to them, there must be a wreck up ahead. To my right, I saw several cars pulled over and a bicycle and a man down on the ground. My first reaction was, someone hit a man on a bike. I watched a gentleman bend over the man's body, press on his chest, and then stand up again, putting his hands on his head in frustration. That's when I said out loud, "Oh my God, he needs CPR." I immediately pulled over to the side of the road. I told my kids to keep their seatbelts on, and no matter what happened, not to get out of the car. The lightning was on both sides of the road, and it was pouring heavily now. As I got out of our vehicle, a woman came running toward me. I told her I was a nurse and asked if I could help. That's when she told me he had been struck by lightning. The gentleman who had been standing over the man told me he was barely breathing. I ran to my car and retrieved my CPR mask from my glove box. At that moment, the gentleman standing by ran toward me shouting, "Hurry, he stopped breathing." I kneeled down next to the bicyclist, assessed him, and began CPR. What was only about 4 or 5 minutes seemed like an eternity. I was frustrated because I knew I needed an AED, but help was on the way. I found out later from my daughter that my son was getting worried and began to cry. She said she told him, "Don't worry, Mom knows what she's doing." It makes me smile to know I had someone so confident in me that day. I remember thinking to myself, I wish these people with metal umbrellas would take 10 steps back. The lightning was terrifying. The paramedics arrived. We tried to attach the AED, but there was too much water. We couldn't keep the man's body dry enough. We threw the AED to the side, and I continued chest compressions while they placed him on the stretcher. He was then loaded onto the ambulance and taken to a hospital. On our drive home, I kept saying that my knees were burning. I didn't understand why my knees hurt until I finally looked down and realized they were cut up and bleeding from the gravel and the dirt on the side of the road. The man made it to the hospital alive and was in the ICU. That's what the 10 o'clock news said. Not knowing was the hardest part. What if all my efforts were just to leave him as a breathing vegetable? I discovered the gentleman I gave CPR to that day was a 51-year-old man named Joe Adams. He was a former United States Marine. He had a wife and kids. He was a grandpa. I tell you who he is because just like all of our patients in the hospital, it is always important to remember that they are not a medical record number. These people who we are entrusted with are usually someone's child, spouse, sibling, or grandparent. The great reward came 2 months later when Joe, along with my wonderful team lead, Erica Jensen, surprised me with a visit. It was a beautifully rewarding experience to hug Joe, talk with him, meet his family. Nothing will ever top that kind of thank you. After just a few weeks in the ICU and rehab, Joe was back at work and riding his bike again. He was left with some hearing loss from a perforated eardrum, a few weeks of memory loss, and several broken ribs. I told him he had me to thank for those ribs. It's okay, he's a walking miracle. Since that time, I've been able to reflect and understand how one moment in time, one decision made in seconds is so much bigger than myself and the man I helped. It became a wave that rippled, affecting not only my own community, but those that knew Joe and heard his story. I encouraged a group of Girl Scouts to learn CPR and help them understand that they never know when it may save someone's life. I was also invited to present to a group of grade school teachers. The principal explained that she has several of her teachers trained in CPR every year and wanted to stress the importance of having this skill. You see, the more I can share my story, the better opportunity I give someone else a second chance at living. I hope my story encourages others to learn CPR, trust their instincts, and have the courage and belief in themselves to use it. It is a very small world we live in, and it only takes one to make a difference. Just last month, my 2 kids and I were on that very same road again. We are on our way to a soccer game, the first time at that soccer field since the event. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we saw Joe here again? I knew this was his route home from work, and it was about 5 p.m. Just as I was turning at the intersection to enter the soccer park, I saw him. A man in a red shirt riding a bicycle. I sent a text message to him later and asked if that was him, and it was. It brought tears to my eyes. I made a difference. I recently told Joe I was looking forward to seeing what great things God had in store for him and how he would be using him as an instrument. I think he has something important for Joe to do yet. His greater purpose is not yet fulfilled. Through our exceptional health care services, we reveal the healing presence of God. Practice this every day and practice it well, for you know not the moment when you will be called upon. Thank you.